What's going on, guys? This is Derek Ledwidge for Strive Fitness and Performance. Today's video, I'm going to end up going over reverse dieting, that and metabolic adaptation. And so we're going to be talking about what reverse dieting is, also what metabolic adaptation is, how we use reverse dieting, what it is, when to use it, stuff like that. And so a lot of this sort of goes along the lines of when people either can't get results no matter how consistent they are at the beginning, or they're the ones that always crash out after doing like really restrictive dieting and there's no exit plan. That's essentially what a reverse diet is. It's your diet after your diet. So it's an exit plan on what you do afterwards. So many people gain all the weight back because they don't have an exit plan. They go right back into regular diet. So that's really what we're going to be talking about today, on a little bit more in depth on what a reverse diet is, why we use it, when you should do it, stuff like that. Now, obviously, this is very, very general, but it is very, very needed. We use these all the time with our clients, both at the beginning as well as at the end. So they're massively important. They're also very, very misunderstood just because of the diet culture that we live in. Because everyone just talks about the fat loss. They don't talk about what to have, what to do afterwards. And so that's really what we're going to be talking about today. As always, if you are watching it live, make sure you click live below. If you're watching the replay, click comment replay below, so that way I can sort of get over a little bit of an insight on when people are watching this these videos. But then also, if you have any questions, as always, post in here either during the replay or during the live. I can easily get to all of your questions. If you don't want to post in the comments, by all means, message me any type of questions, and I will always answer them as I get them, especially on these type of topics, because people generally have a bunch of conversations, a bunch of questions for these. So to begin with, what happens when people typically diet, right? Either they're, eating, 1,400 calories, or a lot of times you go to a doctor and they say 1,200, or if you're doing like the Optavia and it's like 1,000 or 800 calories, stuff like that. But it's essentially most of the time we're on a very, very crash diet. And there are times that you sort of have to do that, right? Some people, I found that it's, especially if people are going through menopause, we have to like dip really, really low. For people that are chronic dieters, they're always dieting. They have to dip really, really low just to get some sort of response. So there is some different times for those type of diets, those type of calories. We're not really going to talk about how to pick which one for that diet phase, because that's not what this video is about. That is what most people do, right? What do? They do that for a certain amount of time. Or if we're on a challenge, like 6 to 8 weeks, stuff like that. They do this until they either get to their goal, or they're generally happy where they're at, or they say, fuck it, and they don't want to do it anymore, right? They just simply can't sustain that, right? A lot of times they view themselves as a failure or whatever like that. Again, that's a different video. But the point is they want to stop. They want to stop where they're at. Well, what happens? Generally, they go back to eating what they were normally doing, right? Which is very big, right? We within our like client base, we usually call it turning into a shit show, right? It is all like no holds barred, we're going crazy, all that stuff. And essentially what ends up happening is you go from super, super low calories to super, super high calories. And now all of a sudden there's a massive gap here. And that's why people gain really, really fast, usually all the weight back plus some. And it's mostly because our metabolism basically adapts, right? And like, so when we don't have that exit plan, we gain all the weight back because we just can't sustain what we were doing before, and we don't know what to do other than that or this. And so this is a transition from that, right? It is a transition to go into higher calories and basically being able to adapt it. We've talked a lot about metabolic adaptation in a lot of our videos, right? There's some posted in our live sections. But basically, as you diet, or just in general, your metabolism adapts to either lower calories or higher calories, right? When we diet down, even like our body's reaction to that is to slow down, right? That's what metabolic adaptation is. We go into it a little bit more in depth in the metabolic adaptation video. But what ends up happening is it adapts to the lower calories. Essentially, the body slows down, right? We're not into starvation mode. It just slows down to conserve energy. And that's generally what happens when you go really, really low calories and you don't lose anymore, right? No matter what you do, you get down to like 1400 again. It used to work. It was working great. Now all of a sudden we plateaued. Your body is adapting to those lower calories. And so what ends up happening when you eat higher calories is now your body's so used to this that it's not using as much energy to burn. So when you give it a whole bunch, there's that massive gap and stuff like that. So what we want to do is we want to go from here and we want our body to adapt to higher calories. If you do it super, super fast, that's why if someone has been dieting for a long time at 1,000 calories and you go off the beaten path, or have like a shit show day or something like that, you could be up like 5 pounds the next day, right? Because the body is so like, I'm used to this, and we go up here. So what a reverse diet essentially is we want to help our body adapt to higher calories. This is how you maintain those results. You protect the results that you just produced, right? So now we protect that. This is our exit plan. So essentially what you end up doing is you bring up calories little by little, right? So without it being general, right? This is a very, very general thing. Essentially, if your protein is where it's at, all you're doing is bringing up your carbs, some fats as well, but mostly your carbs. Carbs help with recovery, right? Dieting and working out is stress on the body, right? At the end of a time, basically, you just don't want to do it anymore. Right? A lot of times you are very, very stressed out. You don't want to do it anymore. So now all of a sudden we're going to promote recovery. All right. So we're going to add more carbs, right? Little by little, right? Until we're at maintenance or something like that. Again, the actual number is very, very different for each person. Not even like calculation. If you want a good general idea, put stuff into a calculation. We should be generally around there. I'll talk about that later on in the video, what to do. But pretty much you're just going to increase carbs, right? And during this time, you're going to be lifting a little bit more because you're going to have more energy. But you are essentially reversing little by little a reverse diet. So instead of taking away calories, we are putting in little by little. And now all of a sudden we are, instead of maintaining our weight at 1,400 calories or 1,200, now we're maintaining our weight at like 1,900, 2,000. And so it helps us to not only maintain the results, but now if we're not to our goal yet, now we have more room to include like good stuff, right? That we weren't able to do during the diet phase, right? So maybe now we're going out to eat more a little bit, right? Because now we can, we don't, the blow to our weight is not nearly as high because we're used to these numbers up here. But now when we're ready to go back to a fat loss phase, now we have more room to bring it back again. So now if we're at 2,000 up here and now we're ready to do it again, okay, I'm going to drop down to that 1,400 or 1,200, depending on what the person is. And then now we have a big gap and now we lose weight again. And you just rinse and repeat. So there's always an exit plan. That's how we sort of maintain the results that we got. That sort of goes along the lines of the phasic nutrition plans, right? Nutrition phases. We reverse, which is a transition to a maintenance phase, different goals, stuff like that. But essentially you are getting your body to adapt to higher calories, right? It helps with recovery. Even if we're not to our goal yet, you always want to do that after your fat loss phase. Again, whether you are done or you're just, life happens or something like that. So when do we do this? When do we use this? There's two general times that I tend to put people on a reverse diet. The easiest one is not the easiest one. The most common one is after the diet plan. Basically, a good diet or fat loss phase is around 12 to 16 weeks. And then when we reverse diet to bring back up to maintenance phase, and then we start, building muscle, recovery, stuff like that. So essentially it's afterwards, right? Generally the reason why we do this is either A, they just can't sustain it anymore. They're done, right? They want to say, fuck it. Their consistency's down. They feel like shit. They're achy. They're starting to get injured a little bit more. Their body's just overstressed. Okay, let's reverse diet. Did a really good job here. Now let's go up here, protect those results, and then we can do it again when we're ready. Maybe they got to their goal, right? And now all of a sudden we need an exit plan. Or maybe now life starts getting in the way, right? So, like the holidays or the summer, right? During that time's really, really hard. And it's really hard to continue the fat loss phase. So you know what? Let's reverse. Let's bring it back up here for these next couple months, right? Let's maintain. Let's lift some weights, right? Let's learn how to recover. Let's learn how to do some of these things and include some of these things and basically integrate it to our lifestyle. And then we're ready to do it again, right? So that is the most common one, right? That's what most people think about. But another one is at the beginning, right? This would be someone that is always trying to lose weight, or they've lost weight for the longest time and they can't lose any more weight. They are plateaued, right? So someone comes to me and we, try to do a fat loss phase, and no matter what they do, they can't lose weight at like 14 or like 1,200 calories or anything like that. Basically, their metabolism is adapted because of what they did before they came to us. And so what you end up doing is what I call a metabolic reset phase. Essentially, it's a reverse diet, right? But instead of protecting, now all of a sudden we're resetting the metabolism, right? You reverse diet back up, lift some more carbs, we start building some muscle. Basically, our body recovers from the long history of everything, right? And then we can now go through a fat loss phase. You'd be surprised how common that is, especially with women, because they're chronic dieters, that you have to do one at the beginning, right? A lot of times that is the case, even though at the beginning, maybe we try to do a fat loss phase because we wanted to see, but that is usually the case for a lot of people. Like I said, especially women, is you have to do it at the beginning, right? And you just basically bring it up and recover, build some muscle. During that time, you'll probably lose some inches. You might not lose weight, right? But we want to make sure we're still tracking our weight because we don't want to gain a whole bunch of weight. But that is when to do it, right? So generally how to do it is pretty much what I talked about before. You're going to be increasing the carbs, right? So the whole process, not necessarily going to go over it too much because it is very, very general, but if you need to do it, right? If you need to do it at the beginning or at the end or anything like that, basically you're spending about, 2 to 4 weeks, give or take a little bit, and increasing, right? Generally, I would say increase like 200 calories every 2 weeks, right? That's the easiest way to do it, right? You do it little by little for like a month. It depends on the person, right? If you've been dieting your entire life, it might take a little bit longer. But how do we know is we track our weight, right? If your weight like jumps up super, super fast, you need to go a little bit slower, right? Your body's just super adapted to what was happening, right? If it doesn't do anything, like you just increase, it'll go up a little bit initially just because you're eating more food, and then it'll sort of come back down, right? So you'll see a little spike, just like if you went off plan on a diet or a fat loss phase, and then it'll come back down and then increase again. It'll do this, come back down, right? And that's sort of like what we want to do. So during that process, you're essentially going to add more carbs to your plan, assuming you have enough protein, little by little, right? About 200 calories worth, which is generally around like 30 grams of carbs, I think. You just do that until you generally get to, the number that you put into a calculator, or more specifically, your weight consistently goes up, right? That's generally your range. Everyone has a maintenance range. And so if I'm here and I go lower, I'm in a deficit. If I'm up here and go higher, I'm in a surplus. So maintenance, what's going to happen is we're going to ride this little area in the middle, right? But essentially, if you want to do it really correct, you're going to increase little by little until your weight, instead of coming back down, it's starting to consistently go up, right? And then you would end up stopping, right? But generally, a lot of times women will be around like the 1900 range, give or take a little bit. Guys will probably be around like the 2500 range. Women might be like the 19 to 2000, stuff like that. Everyone's very different. But you would just do that, right? You increase doing that, stay there. Rule of thumb, a lot of times you stay there for as long as you were on the diet plan. Right? For some people, it might be a couple months, right? It might be like 5 months just because they were chronic dieters before, right? If someone that just did like a little small 12-week window, maybe you stay there for 2 months, right? And then you maintain stuff like that, and you just rinse and repeat. But that is a reverse diet. So we went over, what happens on a typical diet and why we need the reverse diet. We talked a little bit about what reverse dieting is and what metabolic adaptation is, when to do a reverse diet, why we need to, and basically how to do it, right? Generally, the question usually comes with, well, I can't eat that much. Generally, yeah, you can once your body adapts to it, right? There's different ways. Some people do a little bit more volume. I have one client right now that she had a band around her stomach. She had that surgery, right? So she was eating 400 calories, right? Lost a bunch of weight, right? But she plateaued, right? She couldn't do it anymore, all of that stuff. And right now she is losing inches. She had been losing about 10 pounds just because she started being more active, right? So having more energy, building some muscle. But now she's starting to lose inches, and she's eating 1,900 calories right now, right? There's different ways that we did it, right? A lot of supplements, very low volume because she couldn't eat a lot of food, but we still got her to, I think she's eating 190 grams of carbs right now. And she's losing inches, right? And so we're staying there. Her weight's not doing anything. It's awesome. She's losing inches. She's eating 1,900 calories. And then now we're ready to do it again after, after her next off season. But that is reverse diet. If you have any questions, please post below. If you know that this is going to help someone, tag them below as well. But this is always going to be there for you guys. If you have any questions or concerns, or you want to just talk about what this is and do you need one, comment below or message me and I can answer any questions